Welcome to this month's Founder Spotlight. My name is Georgianne Gettin, and I am the CEO and founder of GSD Solutions, where we are a business development agency that supports small and medium-sized businesses in getting the staffing, tech support, as well as operations support that they need to start and grow their business. Today, I'll be interviewing Katya, who is one of the co-founders of JelikaLite, and we'll be talking all about her business and what they do in just a moment. I'm a part of the New York Tech Alliance board, and I will be leading the session and the moderator for today. All right, so just as our privacy statement, you might have gotten a notification that we are recording this session. We photograph, video, and audio record our events to share important discussions and experiences with people who are unable to attend. So if you're watching the replay on YouTube or on our other social media, hello there. Thank you so much for watching, and for folks that are joining us today, thank you so much for being here. You can always go to our YouTube channel and subscribe there. If you head on over to youtube.com/NYTechAlliance, that's where you're going to find us. Also, our community, right? If this is the first time you're interacting with the New York Tech Alliance community, our community serves over 60,000 members, right? We've also produced over 300 plus office hours annually. We connect communities such as immigrant founders, women in tech, Latinx, Black and Brown founders, LGBTQ, accelerators, so many spaces that are in New York, as well as in other cities and states, and even around the world, to help and promote the New York tech community here in New York, and just getting other people connected into it. So that way we could have an elaborate community here, as we like to say sometimes, Silicon Alley, right? So thank you so much for being here and being a part of that great community. Up next, we want to thank our sponsors, right? We have our great and gracious annual sponsors that make events like this possible. So if everyone could just, give a round of applause to our sponsors. Thank you so much to them. Upcoming events. If you want to ever find out about events that we have coming up, you could go to nytech.org. /or_events. And we have a Paul Ellis event coming up in May. So definitely head on over to our website later this week to register for that event, as well as you should all be subscribed to our newsletter, which is amazing and has other community events that are happening as well. If you want to continue to support the New York Tech Alliance in a deeper way, you can make a donation when you register for one of our events. You can become an individual or supporting corporate member, or you could just make a simple donation by heading over to nytech.org/support_NYTA. All of your support, all of your donations are definitely well used, and we make sure that we continue to support this thriving New York City ecosystem. So that's my intro, and now I'm going to stop sharing my screen and welcome up Katya for our amazing conversation today. So Katya, while we are transitioning over, I'd love for you to give us an introduction to yourself.
I'm Katya Sverdlov. I am CEO and co-founder of JelikaLite. And my background is initially investment banking and risk management. I spent 12 years on Wall Street in progressively senior roles doing mortgage-backed securities and CDOs. And after the crash of 2008, I wanted to do something useful for humanity for a change. So I switched careers and I went to law school. And in 2009, I went to law school. Once I finished, I started eventually my own law practice, focused on estate planning and special needs planning and elder law. And I actually still have that law practice. I have a few people working for me right now. And in parallel, 4 years ago, me and my co-founder, we started JelikaLite, which is a medical device company, and we're building a non-invasive brain stimulation device for autistic children, improving communication skills.
Thank you. So let's talk a little bit about that transitional period, right? From law, and it sounds, I heard a hint of how you got into special needs services, because you said your law firm focuses on estate planning as well as special needs, and then you transitioned into this medical device. What happened in between that, made you pull the trigger and transition fully?
So as part of the law practice, and in addition through many families and friends, I was introduced to autism. And I saw the desperation that parents are feeling as their children are getting older as there are so few solutions that are currently available. Autism rates are now almost 3% of the population, and these rates keep rising. 30% of the children remain nonverbal, and almost 50% end up institutionalized. The cost of autism is roughly $1 to $3.5 million per person, depending on the severity of symptoms. And the current standard of care is behavioral therapy, which requires one-on-one instructions with a highly trained therapist. All the therapy drops off after the child reaches a certain age. There are no medications that treat core symptoms of autism. There are some wellness products that promise treatment or even cure, but none of them have FDA approval. A lot of them are not even evidence-based. And special needs schools are understaffed and underfunded. So when my really good friend, who is a Harvard-trained psychologist, told me that and she has over 20 years of experience with autism clinical therapy and research, and she told me in one of the conversations that there is a potential solution, there is a technology that is potentially available that can actually make a noticeable difference in the life of autistic individuals, but there are no products that are actually one can buy. First, we're really excited about it because, again, it's a potential solution that's out there. And then, like, what do you mean there's nothing out? Like, what do you mean you cannot buy it? And then we said, well, then we're going to build it. If it's not available, then let's build it. And at that point, we did not know what is the difference between a wellness device and an FDA-approved medical device. We did not understand much about that. And over the last 4 years, we've learned. So that is how JelikaLite was born, out of desperation that we have seen in terms of what is available, and not much knowledge about the medical device industry. But to date, over these last 4 years, we have conducted 2.5 clinical trials. The third one is ongoing right now. We received FDA breakthrough device designation. We received National Science Foundation funding. We filed patents. And most importantly, we actually, we built this device and we see kids improving as a result of this treatment.
Wow, that's amazing. Like, I love that journey. And and I want to highlight what you said, right? You didn't see a solution out there. You heard that there could be a tool, a technology that you could use, but it wasn't, being actively used in practicality. So they're like, idea wise, like, yeah, we have a solution, but practical, like practicing, like at real life, we don't have the solution. So you're saying, you said, we're going to make it happen. A psychology professor and a lawyer team up to change the world of autism, right? Like, who would have thought? So I love that story, and, you sharing why you started the business. So now, it seems like you had a lot to learn, right? Like you said, you guys, this was not your background. So can you tell me some of the obstacles that you faced while learning about this industry? And if any of them stemmed from being a female founder, you could share those as well. But just what are the obstacles that you have faced while building this business?
What hasn't been? The one positive is that we are absolutely not shy about asking for help. And so we built a great team, a great advisory and scientific team that has been helping us throughout the process. And we are very grateful to our scientific advisors, to our artificial intelligence advisors, to our commercialization advisors, to the consultants that we have used. So that was great. Honestly, I did not expect to have an issue with the fact that I'm female. I've been through investment banking. Never, aside from the very start of it in the 90s, when people were quite open, like in the 90s, I wanted to go into oil and gas. And I was told quite openly, we don't take girls in investment banking group in oil and gas. It's an old boys club. Like, okay. Aside from that, never had an issue with being a woman. Never felt like there was discrimination, never felt like I wasn't getting promoted or recognition. So not an issue. Went to law school, went to, I go in front of judges all the time. I meet clients. Not once did I feel that there was an issue because I was a female. in this industry, I was flabbergasted. And I think it's specifically more with VC industry. I could not believe that people can be so rude and people
Mhm.
can be so dismissive. And I heard the same thing from other female founders as well, that yes, you get pinched in inappropriate places, you get dismissed, and people tell me, not bad, we expected better. And again, like, I am a fairly accomplished individual. I went to Cornell, I went to investment banking, my own business. My co-founder has Harvard, Princeton behind her, and yet quite we literally get quite rude comments and dismissed. So it is what it is, and you just move on. So that's fine. In terms of challenges, I think having, and that has nothing to do with being a female, I think it's just in general, not having had a prior startup was definitely an issue in terms of raising funds. We've raised today $2 million. Probably we should have raised more. The fact that we were raising through COVID, through inflation, through the war, now through SVB bank collapse is absolutely not helping.
It's like
But
all the challenges just got, it's like, you want to start a startup? Here you go. Here you go.
okay, so, but it is what it is. So we're alive. We keep progressing. We've done quite a lot with the money that we have raised. We are very grateful for the community who has supported us, for the parents who took the plunge in participating in a clinical trial with an unknown medical device with their children. I mean, in the end, they are the heroes because they are the ones who are willing and able to take a risk because they want their children to be better. But they're the ones bringing their kids twice a week for a period of 10 weeks, and they're the ones risking that potentially kids can get worse as they can with any unknown treatment. Not with ours. With ours, kids have been improving, or for the worst, not just staying the same. So I think, right, the biggest challenge is always raising money, and just learning and making connections. I have to say, for the most part, once I reach out or my co-founder reaches out, people are willing to at least give you one phone call and to help. And most people understand how little there is available now, so they want to help in terms of advice, in terms of participating as an advisor, in terms of making other connections. So honestly, I'm extremely grateful to this community and for taking a chance on us.
That's a beautiful explanation, and I want to just point out, two things that I heard from you here was just being resilient as well as persistent. So you didn't know all the answers. You guys weren't, experts in the industry, but you were persistent and continued to learn, continue to reach out, continue to ask for help. And then the resilience comes in where you were getting that negative backlash from people, that judgment. The effects of being a female founder, right? I like to call it the side effects, right? The side effects of being a female founder vibrate throughout the entire community, and we see it, and all of us have hopes that it will get better. And like you said, you're coming from these even harsher quote unquote harsher industries, and you were surprised to see like this industry here, right? That seems like, it's all about innovation, change, moving forward, pushing through, is where you experience this negative backlash by being a female founder for the first time. So thank you so much for sharing that and being so transparent. And just again, founders out there, you have to be resilient and you have to be persistent. So my next question talks a little bit more into the technology. So you've built both software and a hardware, and I know there's challenges on both ends. So tell us a little bit about what the experience was like to build that hardware, and then like the software and any technicalities that had to go into it. You're non-technical, you both of you had a non-technical background. Now you have to source technology to build like a physical device that is going to children's brains. So you have to, there's a lot has to go into that. So tell us a little bit of what you can share around like what it was like building that hardware.
Paranoia. Given that we're both non-technical, one, we wanted to make sure that we hire the right people, and
Mhm.
two, that the device and everything we do is safe.
Yeah.
Because at the end, the very first premises do no harm. So whatever we were doing, we did not want to make it worse. And we've been, we've spoken, initial prototype was built by a designer, and we're very grateful. And I don't think we were good clients at the time, because also, I mean, everything was a learning process for us. And so we were learning as we go in terms of what does it take to build a mechanical prototype. How do you make sure that it actually fits, right? The very first issue was these are autistic children that are very sensory and don't want anything being worn on their head. How do you build something that is comfortable for the children to wear, but at the same time does not fall apart? And so a combination of a mechanical engineer and an electrical engineer, and children who were willing to try on devices, and safety issues and multiple iterations. And that was our alpha prototype that was used in the first clinical trials, and several iterations later. Now, unlike a normal software product, you can have multiple iterations with hardware, and especially with a hardware that's a medical device, because there are so many regulatory requirements for a medical device where every single design iteration has to be documented and checked.
Mhm.
And again, it's not just, it has to be safe. How do you make sure that the device does not overheat? How do you make sure that if the device slips on the child's eye, the eyes do not get burned up? We make sure that it's not overused, and we give treatment for 10 minutes at a time. What if somebody wants to use it for 20 minutes?
Mhm.
All of these issues are now incorporated into the next version of the prototype that we're using now. And again, we learn, you learn and you make sure that you hire somebody who is an expert in it. So we've been working with Sterling Medical as our product engineers. We also have a CTO on the team now, who is a gentleman with over 30 years of experience with building and designing and commercializing medical devices. So
Perfect.
he is the primary spokesperson when it comes to speaking with our engineers. But again, engineering is one issue, but then there's the commercialization issue. They make sure that, again, it's comfortable. How do you make sure that it's something that doctors can use? How do you make sure that something that clinicians can use? How do you make sure that you collect the data that is actually meaningful for everyone? So all of that is an ongoing and fascinating process.
Nice. And you mentioned previously, getting patents, FDA, right? So now I want to ask, what agencies did you have to work with in order for things to get approved? Like if you could name some of those.
Yeah, we're not fully right. So this point
For the process, yeah.
Yeah, at this point, we received FDA breakthrough device designation, which basically means that FDA thinks we have something that is amazing, that's not available right now, that is potentially better than the current standard of care. Does not mean that we can have a right to sell it. In order for it to be approved by the FDA, we need to run another large clinical trial with approximately 100 children. Part of that we hope will be done with SUNY Upstate Medical. We just won a grant from the state of New York to do it, which we're very grateful to the state of New York, by the way. New York State has been supporting us throughout on many different levels, through accelerators, through grants, through awards, through connections. So I'm extremely grateful to various people that we've met. But yeah, FDA has been the primary agency that we've been working with. So far, knock on wood, all of our interaction with the FDA has been extremely positive. We received from them first that it's a non-significant risk device study, which makes parents feel safe, that it's at the very least, the children will not be getting worse. Then we received FDA breakthrough device. Then FDA wanted to have an informational meeting with us, to understand the mechanism of action of this technology. Then we had 2 pre-submission meetings with the FDA. So in every step, we keep advancing and progressing. So that's the main and
Okay.
only agency that we're working with. Patents, we are working through our patent attorneys at McCarter and English. We received 1 patent. We're currently expediting the review of others. Of course, it is always an issue because once we go to market, there can be other follow-on companies that can take it. So protection of our technology and know-how and protocols are very important.
Absolutely, absolutely is. And you know, how did you find that initial talent to build a device? So you say you had a mechanical engineer and an electrical engineer. So like, what was that like? Did you know, how did you find them? Was it, because we've had conversations and a lot of folks that we talk to is mostly software, and people talk about offshore teams and local teams. So how did you go about even finding in the first place these type of engineers?
We thought about offshore, and actually our website designers are based in Ukraine. And we were considering the device designers outside the US as well. And so happy we did not go with that, because in the end, it does take many iterations. And, you know, I'm based in Brooklyn. Our very first designer was based in Brooklyn as well. And we were there once a week. We were there once a week, touching, arguing, feeling, trying it on, twisting things around. Could it have been done with offshore? Maybe. It was definitely much more efficient being like that. Our current designers, Sterling Medical, are in New Jersey. And again, like, so we're not there every day, but they can overnight things to us, and they do, as things need to be adjusted, fixed. And when they had to, they stopped by our offices here and did it. So I strongly prefer local designers. It just makes things dramatically more efficient. And how did we find it? Again, well, the very first one, thank you so much to our first investor, who was an angel investor, and he had actually his own company, has his own company. So he was using this designer as well. So it was a introduction, but really most of the things that we have found has been through introductions. Most of the vendors, the attorneys, the regulatory consultants, the investors have been through introductions. So, which is why I network. In fact, one of our main investors, Brain Foundation, which is a large not-for-profit agency focused on translational research in autism, they found us because I did a podcast. And a podcast was through Fuse competition, which is a New York State-based competition, and we won. And they did a podcast with the winners, and it was then promoted, and Brain Foundation found us. And again, it has been an absolutely wonderful and productive relationship.
Nice. Thank you so much. And I want to, you know, I'm doing these little recaps, so I want to highlight what you said, because we're hearing a lot, but I want to have you guys take away from what Katya just said, is tap into your local resources, right? New York State has been so powerful and influential, and you know, there are a bunch of different grants, programs, accelerators. There's so much resources in our local vicinity that we don't even know about. So start researching now. If you haven't tapped into the resources in New York City as well as New York State, definitely do that. The next thing that I heard was also tapping into your local network, right? Who do you know, and who do they know? Maybe there's somebody in your third degree. You know, LinkedIn is a powerful tool. Asking those, and then the third part of that ties into number 2 is asking those questions, right? Going out there and saying, hey, I do need a developer. Hey, I do need a designer. I need somebody that is a medical device here, you know, hardware founder, right? I need these things. These are the people that I know. Can you connect me with some of these things that I need? Because having a powerful network will really be a game-changing factor of if you're able to build that company or not. So whether it's introductions, resources, or tools, having a powerful network, asking the hard questions, and just tapping into your local resources can be the differentiating factor of if your business is able to get started and continuously grow, or if your business unfortunately fails. So definitely do those things. I'm going to open it up for some questions from the audience in just a few moments. So if you want to start going ahead and putting those questions in the chat, I have about three questions left for Katya, and then I'm going to open it up to you all in the audience. So my next question is, can you tell us some of the barriers you face doing health tech? So we know, there's a bunch of different verticals when it comes to tech, and we know there's so many difficulties and barriers in healthcare, as you've already mentioned, right? Dealing with children with autism. So can you tell some of the barriers or just the obstacles that have been that the health industry presents, especially when you're building something in health tech?
Sure. One is doing clinical trials. We had to get IRB approval in order to do that. And the very first one took us about a year.
Wow.
So
IRB, we continue. So what's that acronym stand for?
Something review board. So,
okay.
So in the past, researchers would do unscrupulous clinical trials without safeguards. And there were many things that could have been unscrupulous, and those had to do with race, those had to do with people who cannot consent, such as children or mentally ill people. Those had to do with shoddy controls, many different. So to prevent majority of these issues, now we have standardized review boards that review your study protocols, making sure that it's making sure that it has a standard. They review consent protocols, making sure that everybody who has to consent is consenting properly and you're disclosing all the right information. And safety, of course, that any adverse. And so universities have their own internal IRB review boards. And then if companies like us who are independent, they go to independent review boards. So if there is a clinical study going on for anything, you can rest assured that at least someone is overseeing it. That's not company to measure for safety and properly conducting it. So the very first time when we were trying to get that approval, it took us about a year because we're working with sick young children who cannot consent using a novel brain stimulation device that has not been tested. That was definitely an issue. We received it. Now we get approvals for current studies within 2-3 weeks because they know us already and we approved safety. Of course, universities still take time. So that's just conducting clinical studies from that perspective, novel clinical studies is an issue. Insurance reimbursement is a huge issue for us because one of the biggest things that people get asked is, that's great that you have a potential treatment that can help people, who's going to pay for it? And for us, it's a huge issue because there are no insurance reimbursement codes. Insurance companies hate to cover novel treatments. They don't even want to talk to you. In fact, they don't even want to tell you what information they want to look at. So that is like coverage of the treatment is definitely an issue, and we are working through it in terms of who is going to pay for this treatment, and it's going to be parents and Veterans Administration and Medicaid and eventually insurance companies. But that is one of the biggest elephants in the room for healthcare. Is it's great that you have something novel and potentially improving lives, but it does not mean, absolutely does not mean, that it's going to be commercially successful in healthcare.
Absolutely.
I would say those are the biggest.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing those. I see the questions coming in. I have another question for you before we open it up for audience questions is, where are you now, right? Like, so tell us a little bit about some of the results from those clinical trials. Where are you now? And then where do you see JelikaLite in the next like 1 to, let's say 12 to 18 months?
Where are we now? We've conducted 2 clinical trials to date. The results were twofold. We were measuring children's improvement behaviorally and physiologically based on EEG data. And behaviorally, we saw a dramatic improvement in that, again, we were working with moderate to severe kids mostly, so either minimally verbal or nonverbal children. We've seen children who are minimally verbal dramatically increase either how they're able to communicate by pointing or by actually speaking. We had kids who went from being a choleric, which means they just repeat what they hear, to actually being able to produce their own speech. We had kids who stopped running away from parents, which is a huge issue with autism because it's a safety issue. Imagine living in New York City and having your child constantly run onto the oncoming traffic. We had kids whose behavior has improved, and we had kids who became interested in other people, which is, again, a big issue with autism. Kids who are trying to now interact with other children. The number one improvement was responsiveness, in that both therapists and teachers said, it's like the child is finally there. It's like you are now able to interact in whatever level the child is interacting, but he's now interested in learning new things or playing games or doing things with you. So that was quite gratifying. We're conducting a small study right now because we got the next versions of the prototype done. Very excited about that. Those are the ones that will be going into the pivotal trial. So what is a pivotal trial? In order for us to get full FDA approval, we need to conduct a large clinical trial with about 100 kids. So we have now devices that are available for that. We have sites that are ready to start these large trials across the country. In fact, I have more than we need, which is great. I mean, it's a good problem to have. And the only thing that I don't have is sufficient money to conduct this clinical trial. So we're applying for grants. Again, we've won in the past National Science Foundation grant. We will be applying for phase 2. We're applying for NIH, we're applying for DOD, and we're speaking with private VCs and family offices as well to raise money. We hope to be in the market next year. If we start the study this year, we're also going to be pre-selling these devices this year as well. So by the end of next year, we hope to have the product available for families.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And so with that, what is your ask? What is your ask for the New York tech community? How can we help?
Where do I start? So to the extent people have clinicians, people know of clinicians, psychiatrists or neurologists or developmental pediatricians that work with children with special needs, we would love an introduction. To the extent there are families, parents of autistic kids, we would love an introduction. To the extent there are medical device manufacturers in New York and that provide incentives, we are just about there. We are ready to start manufacturing. So we would love an introduction. And investors, obviously, that invest in pre-FDA approval, but post-clinical. We have, like I said, we have clinical data that shows great efficacy of this treatment. So we are looking for investors in the space.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. And for folks that are watching the replay, those asks going to be down below in the in the description section. So now I see some questions from the audience. So the first question is, can you take us through a decision you're currently struggling with, what outcome are you trying to achieve, and what are your options? So whatever you can publicly share, around decision making, especially, working in this big industry, if you want to share, if you're able to share any.
Well, there were a few. One was what kind of population we're working on, which is younger or older. The need for any type of treatments and technology is much greater for older autistic populations. When you're younger, there's still some therapy available and there are special needs schools. When you're older, there's nothing. There's really nothing. And so the need is much greater. That being, and there's also a lot of promises of things, and we didn't want to sell snake oil. So we wanted to start slowly. We thought we could make a bigger impact right now with younger kids. And so that was our decision, that we're starting with younger kids. The other big decision was from the very beginning, it's much more difficult on just about every single level to develop a medical device versus a wellness device. As a medical device, we have to go through the FDA. We have to hire a very highly certified designer, engineer to do all of that. And we have to do all these clinical trials. We have to publish. I mean, it's millions and millions of dollars. Versus a wellness device, we could have been in the market already, making promises, as there are many other people. And so it's not an easy decision, to be honest, because one, like I said, much more money, but two, there is a lot of desperation in the community. People are saying, we understand that FDA takes such a long time. Why don't you sell this now? Like, it seems to work. Why don't you sell it now? And so it's a constant, we wanted to do for ourselves. We wanted to make sure that what we are doing works. That, again, there was this nice, promising technology. There's a good scientific background to that. There were other studies that showed promise, but it doesn't mean that what we have built actually does work. So we went the long and proper way, in that we're conducting placebo-controlled trials to show that what we are doing actually has an effect, and it's not just placebo, and we're not promising things and charging money for things that may or may not work. So that was really the two main decisions. I mean, we're constantly deciding something on a daily basis, but I think these are the main two things. Is the age. I mean, also people are getting like, why autism? Who cares? There are a lot of other problems out there. Both my co-founder and myself do care. And so that was from the beginning. We decided that we're niche, we're focused on that. Eventually, there are other conditions that this technology may help as well. But this is what we don't want to be everything for everyone. So this is what we're focused on right now.
Very nice. And can you tell us a little bit about the differences between, like, what's like you mentioned wellness device versus a medical device. So what is the differentiating factor? Is it that the medical device is more approved with these clinical trials and by the FDA? Or is it like you could have made the same exact thing and then just labeled it a wellness device, and then you could skip all of this? So what's the big differentiator?
It's exactly right. Could have made, could have. Much less safety regulations for a wellness versus a medical. The main thing is FDA approval. So as a medical device, we have to, like I said, we have to have some clinical trials. We have to have certain safety features, and we can, if FDA approves it, we can make claims. Like the claim that we're currently working on is temporary reduction of autism symptoms. right? And autism symptoms include repetitive behavior, and inability to communicate, and social anxiety. So all of that we will be able to officially say. If it's a wellness device without FDA approval, absolutely you cannot say that. And FDA does shut down companies that claim to do things that FDA has never approved. So if you're a wellness device, like again, you just can build a nice little band with certain LEDs in it, and it will look very pretty. And, I can just tell you that it promotes sleep, and it promotes appetite, and it certain things without which really don't mean anything. So like an Apple Watch is a wellness device. An Apple Watch does not claim to treat anything for you. There are many things that are wellness devices, again, that are walking on the edge of things. But again, for our own perspective, we wanted to make sure that it's safe. So we're building it properly, and we want to make sure that we're not lying to people. That because these families are already dealing with a lot. So the last thing that they need is another product that promises to do things that it really doesn't. So for our own peace of mind, we want to make sure that what we're doing is actually that what we say actually does it.
Absolutely. And I could hear the passion in your voice and just how, you've built this. And so, we really appreciate the work that you and your co-founder are doing, because it takes a person caring, right? There's so many businesses, so many startups, so many everything that people just go in it for the money or the potential, or just like, oh, we could do this. But, from what I'm hearing, you guys are really focused on truly building a medical device that provides the results that for the autism community that you say you'll provide. So we have our last audience question. Which part of the brain is the device affecting, and how does it stimulate it?
There are several brain areas that are being targeted, including the cerebellum, which in multiple studies in the past have been affiliated with issues with autism, as well as Broca Wernicke, which is affiliated with language issues. In terms of how, it's through pulsed near-infrared light. There are many studies that pulsed near-infrared light goes through the skull and the hair, although again, there are quite a lot of variations, right? So somebody who has light hair versus darker hair, there will be difference in penetration. Somebody with lighter skin versus darker skin, there will be differences in penetration. And so all of that we're taking, and boys versus girls, older versus younger, have older individuals have thicker skulls. All of this is being taken into account and for the personalization of the treatment, both for the power and the duration of the treatment, and also the brain areas that are being affected. And some of the autistic kids are withdrawn and some are extremely hyper. That does have an impact on which brain areas need to be stimulated and how. All of this goes into the machine learning algorithm that eventually personalizes the treatment for each individual child.
Awesome. Thank you so much for elaborating on that. And thank you so much for being here with us today. We really appreciate your insights, explanation. I like to do sometimes like a quick lightning round at the end. So these are just random top questions. Very simple, just one word answer. So I'm going to ask 3 quick lightning round questions. What is your favorite food?
Sushi and pizza.
Sushi and pizza. Yes, pizza for the win. What is one problem that you would try to solve for the world if it wasn't this problem?
The war in Ukraine.
The war?
So that Russia falls apart and gets defeated, and Europe is peaceful, and Russia stops being an evil country and spreading evil around the world. I don't think there's anything more important than that right now.
Thank you for that answer. And then the final question is, how do you celebrate a win? When something fun happens, something great happens, how do you like to celebrate?
Not enough.
Oh.
Definitely not enough, but we should. Great. That's a great question.
Yeah, so I want that's homework, figure out ways that you celebrate, and definitely celebrate because you're doing great work. So continue doing that great work. Again, her acts for the community is just introductions to parents, medical device builders, investors, and we're going to leave it in the caption on the video on
And
YouTube.
clinicians.
And clinicians, yes, clinicians.
Clinicians that work with these children, yes.
Yeah, so pretty much every stakeholder that you could think of that is impacted by autism, and then investors in the industry. So please make those introductions. And Katya is on LinkedIn, and all, you could check out JelikaLite as well, and what they're building, what they're working on. Thank you so much for your time today, Katya, and thank you so much everyone for joining us today. And we will see you next time for another Founder Spotlight.